Hey guys, so as you know, I well as you don't know, I really fucking dislike the changes a lot of TF2 bears make to their disliked weapons, because a lot of the changes I see on YouTube feel like they give the problem to certain weapons, but then they fucking make it worse or don't change it at all, give some minor changes. So that's why I decided to make my own, so I can finally shit out others with my own goddamn document. I will probably link it in the description of the video, and I'll write some other stuff after we finish recording. So first off, I wanted to start with Scout and his primaries. As for the Force of Nature, I don't really dislike this weapon, but I know a lot of Scout mains will go and whine to me about me, Force Nature bad, despite it being a generally good weapon, so I decided to change some stuff about it. I took some inspiration from some comments on YouTube and decided to make the second shot now deal knockback on target and shooter, and I decided to make it so it's more utility based, and now have the first shot still deal knockback, but only when shooting like collision stuff and that. And to make it a better contender for the soda popper, I decided to give it a faster reload speed as well. I removed the damage penalty because it's really fucking stupid to give a gun that has more bullets per shot a fucking damage penalty. That's extremely fucking stupid, but yeah. As for the backscatter, it's my fucking beloved. I do not understand why people hate this. It's really fucking good. But it's another weapon that people would shit on and say it's fucking bad even though it's not. So I decided to give it mini crits from any range, but they also decided to make it so mini crits from 900 hammer units away increase your weapon's accuracy, and also increase its clip size on kill. Now you're probably wondering why I did this and I gave it damage bonus. Well, it utilizes in flanking and close range, but the thing is, it feels like it's really lackluster sometimes despite my liking for this weapon, so I decided to give it a damage bonus for better flanks and increase its clip size so it doesn't have to purely rely on its niche upside, to say the least. But I also have some major drawbacks. Well, not really major. I also made it have some small drawbacks like less accuracy, so you still face some downsides along with no random crits. Now you're wondering why there's no clip size decrease. I kinda forgot to fucking include it. But this isn't the finished document, I'm only recording this to like show you the stuff I did. As for the short stop, for starters, I do not like this weapon. It feels very underwhelming, and it feels like you really need to use it in supportive situations to get any sort of use out of it. For starters, I kept the damage bonus, and I also gave it increased healing like its pre-nerf state, so it can actually pair well with the pocket pistol or the candy cane. I also made it more accurate than it was before to support its mid-range playstyle. I also gave it faster reloading and I gave it faster firing speed. The reason why I did this is so it actually feels like you can use it without it being clunky and having to reload for like 5 million years to actually get back into the fight. The shot was pretty pointless, it had no use whatsoever, it was only used for unfunny gimmicks and for some trolling back then in 2018 or something, so I decided to completely remove that and made it so you can now dash forward and shoot your entire clip out at your enemies. This is so if you ever get pinched or get closed in, you can dash away from your enemies and shoot them with your whole entire clip, or get closer to running away enemies and kill them. And I made it have way fewer pellets per shot than it did before, because you could barely get any use out of the damage bonus with how little pellets it shot. The soda popper, I mainly use this scattergun. It's honestly my favorite, and I prefer using it way more than stock because it's way more reliable and hype is a really good feature. Plus the firing and reload speed is very nice. But I felt like it would be unfair to arguably give the best scattergun no downsides whatsoever. So I gave it the same treatment as the Force and Nature did have before. And I did have before. What the fuck am I saying, bro? So I gave it the same treatment as the Force and Nature got. I gave it a damage penalty and I gave it no random critical hits. This was made so it was more utility based instead of being pure combat and offense while giving you some utility at the same time. The Babyface's blaster is a weapon I fucking hate. I will not be hearing anyone out about why it's good, why I love the Babyface. It fucking sucks, bro. It's the most sluggish thing to use in all of TF2, man. It used to be way better when it was just utility based. Now it sucks. One double jump and your entire boost is lost. You take one small rocket splash damage and you're immediately cooked back to zero. On top of all of that, you have a perma-crippling downside that fucking slows you down and makes you look like a fucking snail. So I decided to make it that you cannot also take fall damage because fall damage fucks this weapon over really badly. And I decreased the amount of damage taken to decrease the boost and decreased the amount of boost you lose on double jumping. The reason I did this is because, well, I just fucking told you, dumbass. It really sucks playing with this weapon, and it sucks playing against people who actually know how to use it because they have no life and they trigger TF2 for all of their life. So I decided to change it so it feels less punishing to use and more rewarding. So if you know to keep your fights, you get to keep your boost. If you're struggling to pick fights and choose what to do, then you lose the boost. As for the secondaries, I decided to make it so the Criticola will now give you mini crits for 5 seconds on all weapons and give you crit immunity for half of the duration, which is 2.5 seconds. But I also made it so when it's consumed and after it runs out, it gives you 55 HP. Bro, I'm retarded, bro. Am I stuttering so much? But I made it so your maximum HP is set to 110 when consumed. These effects only last when consumed, but your HP will still be 110 after you finish using it. You'll need to heal up back to 125. The Bonk Atomic Punch is a weapon I honestly like, and see, it gets a lot of undeserved hate, even though the critical is obviously way worse. So I decided to make it that any absorbed damage will slow you still, but after they wear off, you gain more damage resistance the more you are slowed. And I also made you immune to any movement impairing effects. Now gave you a 10% movement speed increase and 20% jump height increase when the drink is active. Also gave you a 2-second speed boost when you drink this item. So it actually has way more utility and actually has flanking support instead of being a snail running around at a slow pace all of the time. Just for you to get no use out of the Bonk Atomic Punch whatsoever. As for the melees, I decided the Sandman is a really stupid weapon. It was never a good concept, it got killed off and turned into absolute dog shit, so I decided to change it. I made it so you deal 45 damage per ball, and I also make the enemies you hit take 20% more damage from it. I also gave you the ability to see enemy health, so it actually pairs really well with the ball homes in on targets under 50% HP stat. I made moonshots deal 90 damage, and I made it so you can hit ornaments, baseballs, and stuff like that, so you can pair them back, because it sucks running around throwing your ball and then being absolutely useless and being forced to take other shit thrown at you. I also gave it no double jump when deployed and a damage penalty. This suits really well because you lose your ability to use momentum and mobility to your advantage, but now you can play way more aggressive. The Rep Assassin. Another good weapon I decided to change for the love of the game. I made the ornament now cause 7 seconds of bleed, and I also gave it a smaller damage penalty, but no random crits. The ornament is also airborne for more than a second, it does critical damage, and I made it be seen as a projectile weapon instead of a melee weapon. The Fanovar is also a weapon that can be used for the memes, but outside of that it's not very good. I played a 1 hour long high tower round and I got almost no use out of it whatsoever. Out of the 100 kills I got, I marked like 4 people with it. So for one, the damage penalty is increased to 65% and marks enemies for that, but now it can do 3 enemies at once. I still kept this funny meme stat, but I also made that killing a marked enemy will make other marked users take 50 explosive damage and give you a speed boost. But I also made that killing a marked enemy unmarks all other victims, so it's actually fair to play against. As for the atomizer, it becomes a fucking market gardener for the scout. Not much to say, I decided to go that way because the atomizer is only used for its mobility, but it's really good in combat. This is said by someone who actively uses the atomizer in my main loadouts. The candy cane used to be pretty fucking pointless. You would just take massive explosive damage and die to your to the easiest kills you could take. Demo men used to counter now wipe you clean with one shot just because you have this equipped. Just for a return that you can get a small health pack when killing an enemy. And that is the dumbest downside I have ever seen. So now I made it so you have increased healing from health packs and that you can also now get less healing from medics. The reason this is a stat I added is because I found it pretty stupid to have a healing item suffer taking more damage. That's really stupid, especially on the classes he counters with his mobility. The Sun on a Stick is a very situational weapon, but it's not really as bad as people say it is. It can be used for funny meme strats and for evading fire damage. But for a change of things, I removed the afterburn. I actually added it so the wielder is immune to afterburn, and I give it a 50% fire resistance. I also now made it so you can throw a ball that does 50 damage and engulfs your enemies into flames. And I also made it so you can get a 2-second speed boost when hitting an engulfed enemy with a primary or secondary. But it still keeps the 20% damage penalty, it gets no random crits, and I made it so you extinguish the enemies that you hit with your primary and secondary. I made this change because the Sun on a Stick is not a very good up-close weapon. So I made it like the Sandman and the Rep Assassin, so it gets more a long distance use and it gives you utility for knowing how to hit your long distance shots. As for Soldier and his primaries, I changed the Liberty Launcher first because it feels really sluggish, just like the BFB to use. I made it have a bigger clip size, a faster projectile speed, and take less damage from rocket jumps. But the 5th rocket in your clip will also mini crit to your opponents if it's the second in a row to hit an enemy. I made it so it's used less for comboing and more for hitting your shots and launching your enemies in a position where you'll get them more often. I also gave it a faster firing and a faster reload speed, because if you have all of those rockets and you do all of that damage, it's pretty pointless to have them when you reload like a snail and you'll get to use them only once in your life before you die. But it still keeps the damage penalty, it's lower to 15%, like always, no random crits, and of course it deploys slower. As for the airstrike, Many people say this is a very good weapon and they like it for soldiers, but I really do not like this weapon. Because, oh my god, bro, 99% of the times I use this, I fire 8 rockets into the fucking enemies, and they do not take any fucking huge amount of damage at all. I feel like I'm tickling them as a fucking ballistic missile. So, for starters, I removed the damage penalty, I gave it more decrease the damage from blast jumps, and I increased the firing speed and explosion radius of blast jumping. And also made it so you increase your reload speed as well on kill. But as a return you get 15% less explosion radius and you get 15% slower firing speed. The cow mangler is a weapon I added weight into the fucking document so it gets no image. I made it so your speed boosted after you shoot your charge shot, and I made it so your charge shot only consumes half of your ammo. And I made it take 1 second to shoot, so it does slower, so it takes shorter to launch. I made it only do 80% damage to building instead of the 20%. I made you slow down while you use the charging shots, and charge shots require and consume half of your clip. The black box is a weapon that's more supportive and used for self-sustain, so I gave into the self-sustain thing and made it do less damage and made it have 90% less healing from all other sources. Now the biggest bazooka I changed my mind on this weapon. I used to hate it a lot and I used to hate using it, but now I feel like it's a very good weapon. But I gave it a faster firing speed, a faster reload speed, and I made it so you no longer have to fire your rocket and you can keep them in your clip. But I gave it a smaller clip size and a smaller explosion radius, nothing new. As for the Righteous Bison, how could I forget this weapon, bro? One of the most killed weapons in the game. But I made it so it does not consume ammo, it penetrates enemies, and each projectile deals more damage with the ones that have penetrated an enemy. I also made it do I also made it have an increased projectile speed the same as a direct hit, and I made it deal the same damage as a shotgun and have the same ramp up. And I made it so your teammates cannot hit your fucking projectiles anymore, so even when you get a lucky crit to wipe your enemy off of the earth, you still get it eaten by a teammate. Now you cannot do that anymore. And I changed the cow mangler set for mini crits when it would normally crit to this weapon because random crits really suck. I forgot to give it random crits, but oopsie. The reserve shooter felt like a pretty pointless weapon, only used to counter trollgers or enemies flanking you. But really, who would flank you as a soldier when you're playing pyro or soldier yourself? So now made it more friendly towards other pyros and other soldiers, so that you can get mini crits against airborne enemies and enemies that have been knocked back in the past 5 seconds. I kept the slower deploy speed, but I removed the clip size decrease because the clip size decrease is pretty pointless to use. As for the gunboats, I only added the fall damage thing because if the manshards get them, why wouldn't the gunboats get them? It doesn't make a lot of sense. I stole the base jump and changed it from fish stick on a stick. I'm not the same shade, I'm not very good at designing weapons, and I just fucking said shade, bro. I'm actually so fucking brain rotted. I gave it 25% less jumping damage on user. I gave it plus 100% air mobility control, and I made it redeploy after 1.8 seconds. And I also made it so you take 20% less damage while your parachute is deployed. The equalizer is good for closing in the gap on your enemies, but considering you are playing the second slowest class in the game and you're using your melee weapon, it's pretty pointless just to say it. It's Its only use is farming that achievement where you have to kill 20 enemies where you have under 25 HP. Its zero use cases are pretty degenerate. It has zero use cases and it's very bad for using when you should really be using it. The escape plan gets off way more and it's way better. I made it so you can deal 300 damage to build adrenaline, and I made it so adrenaline gives you a speed boost, a damage resistance, a 35% damage boost, and immunity to movement impairing effects. Also crits when speed boosted. This means you can do 195 damage on opponents you chase down with this new adrenaline. Also you can build adrenaline with any weapon. But for one, it gets no random crits, it has a damage penalty, and you still get the minus 90% healing from other sources. And I made it so injuring yourself doesn't build adrenaline because it would be busted as shit. The escape plan, for one, I changed it so you can get the same speed amount as a scout, and I gave it more healing from health packs. I also changed the marks for that to be only active when you use this item. The pain train. The pain train is a meme weapon, not very good to use. So I made it do bleed damage because it's sharp, I guess, and I made you gain a speed boost when you're carrying the intelligent briefcase. I also gave it a 10% damage vulnerability instead of making it a straight upgrade if you're fighting an explosive class while you're capturing objectives. As for the degreaser, I made it so it holsters 40% faster and deploys 70% faster, jacking up its stats. But I also made it that extinguishing teammates restores 25 HP instead of 20. But I gave it a 25% afterburn penalty and a plus 25% air blast cost. The back burner suffers way too much from having to use 4 air blasts, even though you will most likely consume way more ammo than 200, so you still get even less than 4 air blasts in. I also gave it a 10% ammo capacity alongside with a 30 HP restore after you extinguish teammates. And I also gave it a 80% air blast cost, so it's 30 per puff, making it so you can do like 6 or 7 air blasts before wasting your ammo. The Phlogistonator gets back its ability to air blast because air blast is the most important thing about Pyro, and nobody will ever convince me otherwise, and I refuse to argue with anyone because it's true. I mean Pyro, I know about Pyro, man. But they made a meter require 300 damage to be filled, but they removed the crits and gave it mini crits, but also gave it a damage resistance, and also made extinguishing teammates restore 40 HP. But it gets double air blast cost because it would be pretty stupid to have a 20 ammo requirement to use air blast on already broken weapon. The gas passer is a weapon that's like completely unsavable, but my changes were to give it 25 seconds of charge instead of the 60, made it not charge on respawn, and made it so you cannot extinguish anyone because it would be pretty dumb to be able to extinguish teammates with the gas passer. But I made it explode and ignite like an MVM, and made the explosion do 50 damage, penetrate all resistances, and ignite enemies. And ignited enemies cannot be extinguished. And you still decrease your cooldown by doing damage. And the Man Melter, it was usually made so to be paired with the Phlogistonator, so I decided to give it air blast back, but I realized it would not be very good considering I made the Phlogistonator have the ability to air blast now. And relying on enemy pyros does feel like a chore, even though the Man Melter is good. So I decided to give it guaranteed crits after doing 250 damage. But I removed the ability to get crits from extinguishing teammates and instead made it add 50 damage to the melter. But we also gained 20 HP per restore. The Scorch Shot is rightfully a very hated weapon because it's cancerous to fight against. As for the Scorch Shot, I decided to make it a hybrid between the flare gun and the detonator. I gave it 50% longer flare jump distance and mini crits against burning enemies along with an explosion on hit. I gave it an afterburn damage penalty and a slower firing and reload speed because it would be pretty cancerous to spam this weapon considering its mobility and aggro at the same time. A lot of people don't understand what I mean by allows user to manually fly through the air. I don't mean the same old thermal thruster that will give you the ability to just jump. No, you would genuinely have to use and move around your jetpack in midair with your inputs to actually get use out of it. You would have to press WSD to fly through the air, fly to the left, fly to the right, etc. But they also gave it 50%. But I also gave it 75% more air control on user, and I made it still deal the 3x fall damage on enemies you land on. I gave it 3 bars instead of 2, and I gave it a 50% charge rate bonus. But I also made it to instantly fall to the ground and let your bars drain on usage. The detonator now got a pretty simple change from me. It uses the mobility tool, but it can still be used for combat even though it's not very good. But as a punishment for using so much mobility, you take 20% more damage from flare jump. The hot hand is usually used to showcase friendliness, but because I fucking hate friendlies and I think they ruin the game, I will not also hit anybody out on this. I made it that hitting an enemy with both of your swings gives you a smack, which does mini crit damage and ignites your enemies for 3 seconds. But I increased the speed boost to be 2 seconds on each hit. As for the damage penalty, I made each swing do the same damage as the stock fire axe, but with a 20% damage penalty instead of the stupid one that was like both swings do a total of 65, but now they have a damage penalty. So that's pretty stupid. The sharpened volcano fragment. The sharpened volcano fragment looks hella cool, but it was hella dumb. So I decided to make it like the anti-extinguisher considering how similar it looks to it. And I made it so it increases afterburn duration and afterburn damage by 20% on targets you hit. And I made it that if you hit burning enemies, you create an explosion that ignites anyone in a 800 hammer units area. It pierces through resistances and it deploys faster. This would make it like the opposite of the extinguisher, which instead you would pair with your flare guns or your flamethrower. You could just airblast your enemy, ignite them and hit them with this and then continue using your flamethrower, instead of relying solely on your melee to get combos. The extinguisher is my beloved and I will never switch it off. I think it's better than the power jack and I will also not be healing anyone out. So I gave it a damage penalty, but it's still smaller than it was before, and I removed the deploy speed because why would you give a combo weapon a slower deploy speed? What is the point of doing that? I do not understand. The back scratcher is a very underrated weapon for pyro, but a lot of people say it's not a very good weapon even though it gets a straight up damage bonus and it gives you more healing. While yes, taking less healing from medics is dumb. 99% of the time nobody even plays medic because people would rather eat a gun than put that healing beam onto you, which I do not understand, by the way. If you do not play medic, I will skin you alive. I made it so now you get a small health pack on kill because hey, what's the point of having more health from health packs if you're not gonna get to use them whatsoever? As cool as this weapon is, I have to admit that's a pretty dumb downside it has of not giving you health packs on kill. I also made it do no random crits. I gave it 90% healing from other sources, and I made it crits from behind because its name is the back scratcher, bro. Why would it not do crits from behind? This is the dumbest decision made. Do not give it crits from behind, bro. What the fuck? The Neon Annihilator basically became the conch for soldier, but more viable and more gimmicky at the same time. I made it so you hit sappers, instead of destroying them, you will make them do less damage, and I give it 100% critical chance against that players. But now, you will also passively regenerate health while this item is active. And I made it so you can taunt to immediately heal your teammates in 1500 when on its radio. But it gets a slower swing speed and no random crits, because it should be way less used for combat and more for utility, so you can be a competitor to the home jack. Speaking of competition, the home wrecker is a weapon that was specifically used for nothing more than pipe brewing. So instead of making it more combat oriented, I decided to make it a competitor with the Neon Annihilator and make it a pure building weapon. If you really hate buildings and they get on your nerves, which I do not blame you, I do not like them as well, you can use this weapon. I made it to take mine, that's not supposed to say plus, I'm retarded as shit, that's supposed to say minus. You get minus 100% knockback resistance. It's supposed to say plus or minus, what the fuck? You get 100% knockback resistance against sentries. You take minus 50% damage from sentries when it's active. I also gave it a 30% damage bonus against buildings, excluding sappers, and I gave it a 20% faster swing speed. Gets the same stat as the whole Neon Annihilator of doing damage to sap. It gets the same benefit as the Neon Annihilator, so it makes sappers do less damage. But they gave it less healing from dispensers and no random crits. The third degree becomes the Market Gardener for Spyro. If you did not understand, I do not like good trollers, but I decided to still give other classes Market Gardeners because it would take way more skill on Pyro and Scout than on fucking troller. Anyways, the Demo Man, I decided to give it a direct damage bonus on direct hits and a faster firing speed, so it feels like the direct hit now. But I removed the smaller clip size, I made it have a 15% explosion radius penalty, and I made it grenades stand still when hitting the ground. Rollers are very important, and splash damage is the thing Demo relies on. So instead of completely removing them, I made them more situational, so you still rely on direct hits. The loose cannon is a really cool weapon, but I made it so you actually have 20% faster projectile speed instead of the fucking 40% slower one. I also made it so it gives you 20% less knockback on direct hits, because I would use a weapon that benefits from hitting your enemies twice but also has knockback. And I also made them be good to fight buildings instead of being terrible at it, so it actually directly explodes when hitting them. And I also gave it minus 0.2 seconds on cannon buff used when hitting an enemy directly. And as for the downsides, I kept them the same. The base jumper was already done on the soldier, and for his secondaries, I agree I did not do the quickie bomb very well. It should be used as a pair with the base jumper, like the airstrike. I wanted to make it that, but I did this. I gave it a 20% smaller clip size, but instead of a damage penalty and a damage bonus, I gave it an explosion radius penalty and bonus. That's all the changes I really made. Everything else is up to pretty much the same. The Scottish resistance now gets slower arm time, but it's halved from its original self. I made it so now it gets faster reload speed on top of firing speed, and those are pretty much all the changes as well. Now the Targin charge, it's obviously Demo Man's weakest shield. It does very little, it gives you very little distance, and I don't see why I would use this over the TIE Turner or the Splendid Screen. So I jacked up all of the resistance you take, and I gave it more charge, impact, damage. And I also made it so if you kill somebody with your charge, you gain 2 seconds of mini crits. I made this change so instead of using it as mobility based, you can play way more aggressive, because I firmly believe each classes should have mobility and offensive choices for themselves. The TIE Turner is way too broken, and paired with some weapons like the Persian Crusader, you practically have no cooldown on your charges. I jacked up the damage resistances, I decreased the amount of charging control you get, and I made it so melee kills refill half of your meter instead of full meters. But I made it so you only need to take direct hits to decrease your charge time instead of being able to take small splash damage and then immediately lose charging time. As for Damon's melees, the Ulapul Caber was a weapon that was also fucking nerfed to the ground for being a meme weapon. Now originally I wanted to make it a throwing grenade, but you people need to consider how fucking broken it would be if some asshole could throw a fucking mind bomb at you from across half of the map and get crit slashed by a medic and deal fucking 270 damage to you in an instant. So I gave it an explosion on hits, I made it so it charges by 30 seconds and it can be used again afterwards. Why do I keep saying sh instead of s? I do not know. I made it deal critical hits when builder is sticky, jumping or charging. Will always crit on charge, which I admit is kind of broken, but this weapon is very fucking gimmicky and it needs all the help it can get. And if anyone's wondering, I forgot to write it, but I made the damage you take from yourself when you hit an enemy be 70 damage. The Claymore is now way more hybrid knight supportive and gives you more charging control, and I made it so melee kills restore half of your primary and secondary ammo and reload half of their clip. This way you can get into fights and actually use your melee when you should, but then continue fighting with all of the ammo you've regained on kills. And I also made it restore 25 health when you're under 50 HP. Originally I wanted to make it so you kill enemies under 50 HP to get 25 health, but that was too gimmicky and all. As for the Persian Crusader, I decided to make it so you get no random crits, blah blah blah, but instead of less primary ammo, you get less deploy and holster speed, meaning you're way worse at self-defending, but still you can defend yourself considering the right conditions. The Skull Cutter gets 35 health on kill, still gets the damage bonus, but instead of a passive downside they gave you this and this. If you could not tell, I really dislike the Skull Cutter. I wish it fucking died. I wish somebody would burn it around. I wish somebody would spin it and throw it into a fucking river, and I hope it is deleted from the game because it fucking sucks and I hate this weapon. So yeah, I kinda gave it more random crits. And the Islander is now very nerfed because holy fucking shit, bro. Demonites are actually so fucking annoying. You cannot kill a single one if you want to. You have to fucking trip them for fucking 5 minutes straight to make them run away with their charge, and only then you have an opportunity of having your teammate finish them off. So I made your max health cap at 2.5 and I made your movement speed cap at 110. Now the half the Twitchy, I decided to lean into giving it the utility based thing it does for Ubers. Now for the half the Toichi, I made it more utility based along with combat based. Based on how much Uber charge you help a medic build, that amount of Uber you built will be returned to you as health on your next kill. Why can I not speak today? What the fuck is going on with me today? And I decreased the shotting damage to be 30 and give it no random crits, blah blah blah, you get the deal. Now as for the heavy, the Natasha was very obviously made to be a supportive weapon instead of an offensive weapon. So I made it that assisting an enemy in a kill will give you a speed boost instead of giving your teammate speed boost, because it would be broken if some fucking scout could just run into you because he assisted somebody. and I made it so that if a teammate assists you, they and I made it so that if a teammate assists you, they will have 20% of their ammo back. And I made it to spawn a large aura around you that heals teammates for 60 health. But I still kept the slower rev up time and I gave it as healing. The brass beast is a weapon I see a lot of people fuck up when changing by just minorly decreasing the downsides. But why would you minorly decrease the downsides when they just drag this weapon up? Now for the brass beast, I saw a lot of people mess this weapon up a lot in terms of reworking it. Because why would you minorly decrease the downsides when the downsides completely mitigate the upsides and make it the more movement speed you gain up to 20% faster than a rev down heavy. And I also made it that whenever you have under 50% of your health, you gain a 30% damage resistance instead of the spawn up thing. And I also gave it no ammo from dispensers, ammo packs or payload cards when builder is spawn up. The Q-Long Hitter had the opportunity to be the coolest thing ever, but just like all of the other miniguns that are in the fucking Tomislav, it's nothing compared to stock, it sucks and it should be thrown in the trash. Now I change it by making it so you can build the Q-Long Hitter is a weapon that looks hella cool and should have been the best minigun, but unfortunately Valve decided to nerf it into the ground and make it completely unusable trash and still keep the Tomislav meta going. Yay, good job Valve! So now I made it that doing damage builds Fury meter and that we have 20% fire and afterburn resistance when you're spun up. I didn't want to make it universal because there are already a lot of classes that completely fuck up pyro in terms of their weapon unlocks, so I decided to change it and I made it a 15% damage bonus against burning players instead of the 25 one, but I removed the damage penalty because the damage penalty was pretty stupid. It's a minigun, why would you give it a damage penalty? And I made Fury give you a wall of air that will push away enemies and extinguish teammates, and now your bullets ignites anyone you hit. The reason for this change was because spies can no longer stab you and you can extinguish teammates to get more health to yourself, and you can now do your extra damage for Fury. But I made it consume an additional 2 ammo per second, and I made it to have no ammo from ammo drop dispensers or payload cards when you're on Fury, and I gave it a 25% damage penalty against underwater targets. The shotguns, they get the change of giving heavy a 15% speed boost when deployed. As for the shotguns, I now gave them all the secondary slot and I made it so they give heavy a 15% speed boost increase when deployed. And I also made them deploy 20% faster on all classes. But the speed boost is only a change for the heavy. As for his melees, they give him a 20% speed boost, but they do not stack with other stuff like blah 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 Garou or something like that. The eviction notice now gets to keep its JoJo-like theme, but now you get a passive increase in movement speed, and I made it so the kits you get give you a 1.5 second speed boost instead of the 1 second one. Also gave it double swing speed, and I made it so swing speed increases as your health decreases. Какво да pričam? Zbunjujem se mnogo se zbunjujem. As for the eviction notice, I decided to give it back its original JoJo-like meme playstyle, but now increase the speed boost you get on hit up to 1.5 seconds instead of the 1 second you get. And I gave it. As for the eviction notice, I decided to keep its JoJo-like meme playstyle by giving it a passive 15% movement speed on wearer, and I made it so hits give you a 1.5 second speed boost increase instead of the 1 second speed boost increase. I also made it do 50% faster swings, and I also made swings increase based on how much health you lost. I also decided to give it a damage bonus because they are literal brass knuckles. Why the hell would they have a damage decrease? And I also made it have a 20% damage vulnerability when deployed, and you lose 30 health whenever you deploy or holster them. It gets no random crits and it gets slower holster and deploy speed. The KGB is a very good weapon. I mainly use them for my heavy loadouts, and I agree that they are very good. But sometimes you can really get fucked over by how little amount of crits you get for successfully killing someone in melee range as a heavy. So I made it do 20% slower swing speed, no random crits, but now you get 7 seconds instead of 5. The warrior spirit now gets to keep its lone bear changes. Warrior spirit is a lone wolf type of weapon. You can use it to get benefits from fighting enemies who get too close, and then you can run away successfully. But the damage vulnerability really fucks you over. So I made it more like the katana, and made it do more damage, give you more HP, and made it so it can overheal you. And now you get less healing from medics and dispensers instead of being forced to take more damage for just sweeping them out. The Fists of Steel are a weapon I really dislike. Anything they are really broken and do not fit for heavy. He is the slowest class for a reason. You should not be able to get away with bad positioning just by equipping an item that can say fuck you to all snipers and to all pyros and all scouts and blah blah blah, and completely remove their ability to kill the heavy in one blow. So I decreased the damage from melee and range sources to 20, and I made it so you have torrents, an effect that makes enemies take 20% of the melee damage they do to you when this weapon is active. I also made it so you cannot get overhealed. I also made it deploy and holster slower, but I kept it the same as the vanilla game. Oh my god, can I fucking speak today? And I give it 50% less healing from dispensers and medics when active. The Groove now gets a 54% damage penalty. The reason for this is so it does the same damage as Scout's stock bet, and I also have it a 10% damage vulnerability from behind, but I give it a faster swing speed, and I made it so you can stack the speed boost with stuff like the Buffalo Steak Sandwich. The Holiday Punch is a weapon that many people love, but I absolutely fucking hate. You should not be able to stun Uber players no matter your class. Holiday Punch is a weapon I hate despite people loving it, and I formally stand by the opinion that they shouldn't be able to stun fucking Uber players who are fucking invulnerable just because you were the slow class, you use melee. I do not fucking care, bro. But I solved the problem of people jumping to avoid your crits and made it so mini crit them. And that's pretty much all the changes made to Heavy's melees. As for the lunchbox items, the sandwich still keeps the 30 seconds recharge time, but now it can be dropped as a large health pack so it fully heals your teams. The sandwich, I pretty much kept it the same, but I made it a stock lunchbox item. I made it so it fully heals you, and I made it so it's a large health pack to your teammates. Now I know people will think this is broken, this is overpowered, but you have to consider that it takes 30 seconds to recharge this item, and that you can only throw it in super specific situations without taking a shitload of damage, and your body taking a shitload of damage. The Lucas bar is a really underwhelming item. It pretty much does nothing, and is forcing you to use the glue if you want to get any use out of it. So I made it give you 50 HP for 60 seconds, and I made it a small health pack. Unfortunately I kept the downside, but I made it so it gives you half of your health, it's eaten faster, deployed faster, and it gets a 75% charge time. The Buffalo Steak Sandwich is still a sandwich. It gets to heal you. I do not care what anybody says. I stand by that opinion, and I will die on that hill. And I made it so it can heal you 200 HP, and I also made it so you can switch to any weapon when using this item. But when you are spun up and using this item, you gain a 20% damage vulnerability. And I made it stack with other speed boosts like the Groove. For the banana, I know you people will hate me, but I nerfed it. I nerfed it because it felt too powerful and almost identical to the sandwich compared to have his other items, so I made it heal half of your health, but I also gave it some jacked up recharge time and deploy time, like the locust bar. As for the engineer, I always thought that for a weapon this meant about repairing your guns, that not being able to give it back its ammo resupply is really stupid, so I decided to make it so it gives you the ability to resupply your sentry's ammo for a long range. And you don't get marked for that by just hauling your buildings anymore. You'd have to specifically use alt fire on this weapon to get marked for that. The Frontier Justice now gets a 34% smaller clip size because it's down to half its ammo. The Frontier Justice now gets 34% smaller clip size because 50% feels like too much. The Thompson, I did what everybody wanted. I made it fire as fast as a direct hit. Projectiles aren't bugged by teammates. But now I've done something really interesting to this weapon. I understand if it isn't the best change, if it feels too identical to Rescue Ranger or something, but I made it so for each 500 damage done or repaired you gain a critical hit, and I made it so it can repair any friendly buildings, and I gave it the same ramp up as the shotgun. But it gets to keep the slower reload speed and it gets a slower repair rate. So it's kinda like a combat rescue ranger. The Widowmaker feels too punishing and makes it so you can chip away enemies. So I decided to give it 20 ammo lost per shot instead of the 30. I made it so damage dealt is returned as ammo. Widowmaker is a weapon that is good, but I feel like it's way too punishing at times because you can pepper enemies and missing one or two shots no longer lets you use it at all. So I made it only lose 20 ammo per shot, and I made it so you deal 20% more damage to your sentry's latest target instead of having somebody get targeted by your sentry to only do that damage. Now, as for a change that everybody wanted and everybody is waiting for, I decided to give the Wrangler a 22% shield instead of a 66 one. I made it fire 2 times as fast when wrangled, and I also gave you a reduction of damage when sentry jumping. Reduction of damage? What the fuck am I saying? And I also gave it a 66% slower repair rate on sentry, and I also made it slower. Now is for a change everybody was waiting for. The Wrangler now gives your sentry a 22% shield instead of a 66% one and lets you manually control it. It now fires 2 times as fast when wrangled, and it gives you a 75% damage reduction from your sentry's damage, so you can use it for sentry jumping. It now also repairs slower, and I made it so it holsters slower. I stole this change from the Watch Show because I'm an original, like 90% of my changes are stolen, so yeah, hashtag cope. Why do I keep saying S instead of sh, sh instead of s? I am retarded. Whenever I record a video I get fucking trauma like this. Like, subscribe because I'm stupid. The short circuit now gets to film the short circuit now gets to fill a malfunction meter with damage done. In the malfunction meter now lets you fire the original orb, the short circuit can in its vanilla version. And I also made it so that the primary fire no longer goes away from your crosshair, so it fires the same as the pistol and it does slightly less damage now, but hitting someone 7 times in a row mini-crits them, and you get 20% faster firing speed. Instead of costing 70 ammo, malfunction costs 100 metal, and now you also get a damage vulnerability when charging your orb. The drag now gets a 20% faster swing speed, a 35% faster construction rate on buildings, and it now gets a damage penalty against zappers instead of buildings in general. And I also buffed up the slower repair rate, so while yes, it's better at constructing buildings and does a better job, it's now worse at keeping them up. So you can still use the Eureka drag strategy, but now you would have to use it more often. Talking about the Eureka effect, I made it so you can teleport to your spawn or to your teleporter exit, but it now takes 0.8 seconds. I gave it a faster teleporter duration charge, I gave it a faster teleconstruction time, and I gave it a cheaper teleporter cost. But as a punishment, you get a slower construction rate on other buildings, and you get a damage penalty, and ammo pickups only give you ammo, and dispensers only give you metal. Now I understand I might have gone too far with these changes, but I was purely experimenting with being original and not taking other changes too much. So if there's any change that feels like it's too much, too little, and you would like to see me change, please feel free to let me know down in the comments. And if you get bothered by the fact I speak like an absolute retard, because I am one, also let me know. I will try to fucking train myself to not speak like a fucking monkey whenever I record videos. But it's fair because I did not script this video at all. I wasted like fucking hours, months of my life working on this. Speaking of months, every month I go to the fucking just kidding. Talking about hospital, Southern Hospitality now gives you 7 seconds of bleed and makes it so it can overheal you. I also gave it more dispenser range and made it so dispensers can overkill teammates. And I also gave dispensers the ability to give enough metal to build a sentry in a single ammo pickup from dispensers. But because of that, you will also get slower recharge time on your dispenser's ammo. And you also get a damage vulnerability when hauling buildings and a slower construction rate on sentries. Now you might not understand why I did this, but it feels necessary to make it so if you want to go for a more supportive role and have dispensers heal your team, you'll have less time to work on more offensive plays and have your sentry set up. The construction PDA makes all buildings build 20% faster, and the destruction PDA does explosion damage now. As for the medic, I did a very controversial change and made the syringes be able to heal teammates. I do not care if people think this is too much, I do not care if it makes it invalidate the crossbow. Medic should be able to heal teammates with all of his options, instead of having one that's purely useless for both offense and defense, and have a melee that does nothing but serve as training wheels, and especially a stock melee. So I decided to make all of the syringe guns heal teammates 2 HP per needle, have a passive reload of 10 needles per second. Also their max capacity is now increased to 300, and they have their clip size increased to 50, and all of the needles fire in a straight line instead of being janky and unpredictable. The blood sauger now makes it so you heal 60% of damage dealt or HP healed instead of the 3 HP, and also made a small health pack drop on kill, but I gave it no passive HP regeneration. I know this seems too much and it seems too major, but the thing is, if you play more supportively or play more aggressively, you'll get to heal yourself more often than you normally would. The overdose now gets an increased Uber building thing. The overdose now gains an increased speed boost on Uber charge rate, and I also made it so it fires faster based on how much Uber you have, and I also gave it a 50% faster heal rate on syringes. But I give it a damage penalty and a slower firing speed, meaning you have to build Uber to use your needles more effectively. The crossbow gets the middle finger because it's stupid, and now I made it so it has 100% less ammo, the max amount of damage is 50, headshot damage is affected by fall off, no random crits cannot bypass healing negating items, but it crits on headshot and does burst healing and heals, which I messed up to 90 HP and has a minimum of 50 damage, 75 max. Why did I write this, bro? What the fuck is this? I also now made all medicals have a 75 push force taking reduction, because I'm tired of pyros fucking stuffing my Uber whenever I get Kritzlished by my friends. Now for the Kritzkrieg, when we're on the topic of that, the Kritzkrieg not only has a 25% faster Uber charge rate, but I made it so it gives you crit immunity when you are Ubered. And you can heal yourself for 60 HP with a taunt instead of the usual 30 or something. The quick fix now heals 50% faster, Uber rate is still the same, but now your Uber charge makes it so you heal 300. The quick fix now heals 50% faster, the Uber rate is still the same, but your Uber charge will provide a giant orb that heals everyone for 350% faster in a 2000 hammer units area. I made it mirror double jumps along with explosive jumps, and I also made it so your heal beam travels and attaches to patients 20% faster. I know some other changes could have been done here to make it less overpowered or something, but that's all I could think of. As for another hated weapon I'm nerfing, the Vaccinator is the most broken thing in the world and I do not like it a lot. I made it so it holds 4 bars and you need to fill 25% Uber to get them, and I made that each bar gives you 10% immunity to a type of damage. First is bullet, the second is explosive damage, third is fire damage, fourth is melee, blah blah blah. But Uber charge gives you and your target 50% damage reduction to all damage types and a 75 crit immunity to all damage sources. You can use Ubers with any bar amount filled, but you will only get set resistances. If you use first bar, you get bullet immunity. If you use second, you get bullet and explosive. You get it. And I made it have overheal rate, downside 33% heal rate on overheal victims, and require at least 1 bar to be filled to use Uber, and each bar must be fully filled to gain the resistance. Bones, all bones don't get to use the amputator taunt. The Uber gets a much deserved nerf of doing 15% Uber charge, and now it gets an upside of having 10% faster heal rate on medigun and syringes. It's the Uber after all. But it gets a damage penalty along with its slower spin speed and a much needed stat, no random crits, because fuck you Uber medics, I hate you. Now for the Vital Saw, I went into the organ thing a little bit more. I made it so on hit or when a dropped ammo box is collected from a teammate or enemy, and when your healing patient dies, you gain an organ. Organ gives you 10 HP and faster move speed. Organs increase your passive regen up to 5 HP, plus 1 generate 2 organs, and your healing rate from taunt and syringes to 4 per syringe. I also gave it a minus 10 HP penalty, so to keep that, I made the organs and max out at 4 and capped at 175. Now the speed boosting is not very good, but I know. The reason I made this is because I wanted it to have some sort of aggressive playstyle, because like I said, all classes should have mobility and aggressive playstyles, so now you can become Islander medic or some shit, I don't know, man. The amputator, I stole it from the Watch show. Yeah, that's right, another change I absolutely stole. I decided to give it more healing and taunting. I made this upside passive, blah blah blah, and I also made hitting teammates heal them for 50 HP, but it still keeps the damage penalty. The Solemn Vow allowed you to see enemy health and gives you 20% damage resistance when deployed, but it also has a minus 50% damage penalty because do no harm. All snipers have tracers from the Machina and have the line from MBM, sniper boss and scoped in. They do damage with on. I kinda stole these changes as well from like those competitive TF2 leagues, but boo-hoo. As for the classic, it charges faster, gains up to 60% faster move speed based on charge percent when not scoped in, and moves at normal speed when I don't fucking know how to write it. And charges shots independent of zoom, but requires half of your charge to headshot and does only 85% damage on body shots. The Sydney Sleeper now gets to keep its supportive rule, but it can still do a lot of damage. For one, it still keeps the faster charge rate, but for each 20% charge on your sniper rifle, you gain a dart, up to 5 darts, and each apply 2-second Gerati effect, just like the Gerati. Alt fire to shoot all 5 darts, and shooting teammates extinguishes them. But for each kill gain a 2-second decrease for Gerati, and on headshots a 900 hammer units explosion of Gerati happens, and applies 2 seconds of Gerati on any hit. Mini crits on headshots when shooting with alt fire, single dart shots only apply 3 seconds of Gerati, and a 20% damage penalty on body shots with alt, and a 20% damage penalty on body shots with alt fire. The Huntsman now has a max ammo cap and reloads passively with other sniper rifles. Scoping in zooms your FOV close to your weapon, arrows travel as fast as the stock sniper rifle bullets, and press mouse wheel to change where your arrows will go. After 5 seconds of aiming, your arrows will be forced to shoot only from the middle of the bow, and shot becomes inaccurate after 15 seconds of aiming. Now the Huntsman feel more fair and less luck reliant, so that's why it's said to keep changes like this. The Machina penetrates enemies on full charge. I kept that. No scope hits add 2 extra seconds of debuffs on armament like hits, and penetration kills will spawn a small healing area around you, 750 hammer units, and give you 25 HP. God, I wish I knew how to fucking speak properly. And I also made it so it has no flinching when fully charged, but slower move speed and scoped in. When missing fully charged shot, your location is altered for 4 seconds. The Buzzer Bargain gets to keep its jungle inferno stats or whatever. The Cleaner's Carbine now feels Crikey meter with damage done 100 to fully fill. Crikey can be activated with any amount of damage done. Crikey gives mini crits, faster firing speed, and faster reload speed this time. It becomes more accurate based on enemy HP, and you can see enemy HP because it's the Cleaner's Carbine, so now you get ready to clean up after your enemies. But it's 20% less accurate, and it still gives a smaller clip size. The Gerati now gets the gas passer treatment, starts empty, cannot be opted into resupply closets. Jar takes 20 seconds to charge, and extinguishing teammates decreases cooldown by 20%. But now kills on Gerati, the enemies give you a 1.5 cooldown decrease on Gerati. And Gerati now lasts 10 seconds. The Razorback, now I see a lot of people mess up this rework, and I do not fucking blame them at all, bro. This is the most situational weapon I have ever fucking seen in my life, man. But I tried it to make it more self-sustainable, so I made it so it blocks a single critical attack by halving its damage, and it covers your killer in Gerati when you're melee killed, but you get minus 10% movement speed when scoped in, and 50 max overkill on barrier. But the Cozy Camper gives passive health regen, and I made it so it perma heals you for 4 until you die when it fully charges. It gives you 50% less flinching, and when fully charged, spawns a 500 hammer unit area that kills teammates and gives them ammo, same as a level 1 dispenser of course. And you gain plus 15 ammo capacity. But now Aura takes 5 seconds to recharge after being active for 5 seconds. It has a minus 10% slower charge rate. The Dangerous Shield is the world's most stupid weapon, so I made it more survivability based, but you get minus 100% overkill on barriers, and you get to move 15% slower. In exchange for more resistances and more health. The Tribalman Shiv, I increased the bleed damage, I made it crit from behind, and I made it pierce to resistances. But now you miss, if you miss, you hit yourself, meaning you really need to know how to use your melee properly, or else you'd suffer from forcing yourself to take crits and self-damage. The Bushwhacker now keeps the crits when it's normally mini crit thing, 2 seconds speed boost on hit, and after getting a kill with secondary or primary when weapon is deployed, you gain a speed boost until it's holstered, and you still get a damage vulnerability and no random crits. The Shahanshah is a weapon I tried to fucking change to not be situational. The best I could get was damage increases when below 75% HP, increases with health depleted. You see this, I wrote it. And give it a faster deploy speed, but give it a slower coaster speed and a damage vulnerability when deployed. As for the Spy, all revolvers now don't lose accuracy after each shot. As for the Ambassador, it now crits on headshot, can headshot at any range, but it's still affected by fall off, and it does no random crits, and it gets that 15% damage penalty. The Diamondback gets one small nerf, it's to halve its clip size. The Enforcer will now outline your enemies when disguised and hitting someone. You get a straight up 20% damage bonus. You won't lose your disguise when killing enemies in one shot, and you get a 0.5 faster disguise time. And hitting outline enemies when disguised mini-kills them. But now you get a 25% faster cloak drain rate, and you get 20% slower firing speed as well, along with no random crits. As for melees, you can now backstab anyone when you are invisible, but will be uncloaked afterwards. The Spicicle now gives you afterburn immunity and 50% fire resistance when this item is deployed and you are cloaked. This means pyros can no longer fuck you over by just spinning their mouse in your general location. And I made it so you gain a speed boost when your knife is melted and that it can be replenished with ammo pickups. The speed boost lets you get away if you're caught in a bad situation, but your knife is melted after you take 65 fire damage when uncloaked for 10 seconds, and you still leave those ice statues when killing somebody. The Ear is my favorite knife. It is not bad. Fish stick on a stick is a liar. The Ear is a good knife. I don't care what anybody says. But I gave it cloak and kill. I made you instantly disguise as your victim. I made your victim not scream. Their body won't ragdoll, and there will be no knife attack sound, and your kill won't show up on the kill cam when killing a human victim. It also gets faster disguise time. But you get the cloak drain rate only when you're undisguised, and disguises require you to have half of your cloak filled but will not consume it. And you cannot use your knife while cloaked. The Big Earner now gets a 5 second speed boost, and gets minus 15 max health on wearer. As for the Connivers Kuna, I always like to call it Conivers because I say Conivers because I'm Serbian, of course, and we all know that we are stocky. Now, I made it on kill, you collect a soul, and souls give you plus 10 max HP. After all souls are collected, kills heal you for 25 HP, but we get a minus 20 humility. As for the Connivers Kuna, I always like to call it Conivers. I made it so on backstabs you get a soul, and each soul gives you plus 10 max HP. After all souls are collected, your kills will heal you for 25 HP, but you start off with minus 25 max health on wearer, and your souls max out at 5, and you cannot use your knife while cloaked until all 5 souls are collected. The Watches now have a 20% damage resistance when cloaked, and taking damage past 100 ability. The Watches now have a 20% damage resistance when cloaked, and taking damage past 1500 hammer units won't make your cloak shimmer, and cloak recharge rate is set to 15 seconds and now halves debuffs. As for the Dead Ringer, I had zero idea how to make this item. It's not like how people say it is. It doesn't fit terribly to TF2. I feel like it's a really cool concept, but it's done very terribly. So I made it so you can use the entire cloak to fake your death and appear that to everyone for the entirety of your cloak duration, which is 6 seconds, but I made it so you have 3 seconds of a speed boost when feigning your death, and that you decloak 20% quieter when feigning, and feigning will cloak you instantly. But cannot attack at all while cloaked or feigned. You cannot recharge your cloak from ammo boxes just like the original Dead Ringer. You get 100% slower cloak recharge rate, which is 30 seconds. You get 20% slower cloak time and 20% slower decloak time. The reason I did this and removed the passive cloak regenerate that the other English had is to make it be more balanced and be more fair, instead of just being able to press one button and escape out of your death for free, just to trick step some clueless heavy with 20 hours on the game and be completely unkillable for the rest of the round, and make your enemies chuck a few slurs up your way because you're being a fucking loser. Now the cloak and dagger gets 100% faster cloak rate, it gets the cloak type motion thing, it's pretty much the same as vanilla, but what they changed is jumping no longer decreases cloak duration, only moving while you jump does, and that 25% less cloak shimmer when hit. But now you get 50% less cloak from ammo when invisible, and you get a minus 20% cloak duration. Sappers now outline whoever this is. As for your secondaries, aka sappers, they will now outline anyone who destroyed them in the buildings that were sapped for 10 seconds. The red tape recorder gets to reverse enemy buildings with damage done. 8.1. As for the red tape recorder, it reverses enemy buildings with damage done 1.8 seconds to D-level essentially, and with each D-level, a small shock radius will slow down all enemies in 1000 human units radius. And when a building is destroyed, the explosion outlines enemies as well. Your sapper now has plus 25% HP, and you can throw it on the ground and it will explode in a 1750 human units radius. But your sapper damage now does 50% less damage. Wow bro, nice math bro. Sapper damage does less damage, oh my god. And you have a minus 50% shorter debuff time, which is 5 seconds for everything. And only one building will explode and send a shockwave and de-leveled or destroyed if multiple are sapped. The first building you sapped will explode the shock. And Altfire destroys your sapper for 10 seconds. The disguise kit, you can now feign reloading by pressing R, and you take 20% less damage when disguised, and it kills debuffs. And that's officially every rework I have done. Thank you for watching and listening to my schizo-rant about TF2 weapons. I will link the Google Doc in the description, and if you disliked how unprofessionally I spoke, how much I stutter and things, I'm sorry, I'm not very good at speaking, my bad. Videos will be more professional after this. This video is unscripted.